Now, it's a quest which was meant to take just a year, but in fact ended up taking 7, documenting all the freshwater fish in Britain's lakes and rivers. But Jack Perks has finally come to the end of his mission after finding and filming more than 50 separate species of fish. He's been speaking to Sky's Fraser Maud.
Eccentric or determined, you decide. Jack Perks has been on a mission for the past 7 years to film every species of UK fish in their natural habitat. What started as a challenge became an obsession.
I thought it'd only take me a year. I didn't think it would take this long. So I thought, okay, do it that and then I can carry on with the rest of my life. I got about 40 in the first year, and then for the next 6 years it was just trying to tick them all off, and it did slowly become an obsession, if you like, to try and get them all.
His quest took him from one end of the country to the other, including the secret location where he was to find the last of his quarry, the elusive Alice Chad.
If I get the shad, I will be doing backflips, or I'll attempt to do a backflip anyway. I'll have a big cheesy grin. I will be so ecstatic.
The rarest fish is undoubtedly the Vendace, which dates back to the Ice Age and was presumed extinct until it was rediscovered in 2013. The weirdest, obviously subjective, but the river lamprey has to be a contender. And the most beautiful, well, it is in the eye of the beholder, but for Jack, it's the humble grayling. Becoming a fish completist has required skill, knowledge, a lot of patience, and a distinct disregard for comfort.
One of the memorable ones was in Scotland in November, lying down in a Scottish stream trying to get salmon. My beard froze. It was that cold. It was brilliant to see the fish, but not an enjoyable experience. I nearly got hypothermia in the end of it.
Most of us have heard of trout, salmon and carp, but many of the 54 are much harder to find, like the powan, the crucian or the pumpkin seed. There is one slight element of controversy here, though, whether or not there are 53 or 54 species of fish which can be filmed in our waterways. The 54th is the burbot. Now, some people very optimistically think that there is still a chance of seeing it somewhere. In reality, it hasn't been seen since the 1970s. The solution? A quick snap of a stuffed burbot in the local museum. With his freshwater mission now complete, Jack says he'd like to film our coastal fish next. Fraser Maud, Sky News, Nottingham.
Well, joining us now from Frome in Somerset is Jeremy Wade, the presenter of Jeremy Wade's Dark Waters on Animal Planet. A very warm welcome to the programme. You're a funny old lot, aren't you? I mean, I can say that with affection. My husband's a keen fisherman himself. What drives people like you, and indeed the chap we've seen doing these incredible photographs in the report just there, to carry on and horrible conditions and follow this obsession?
I think it's largely because freshwater fish are very neglected. You don't hear an awful lot about them. If you watch wildlife programs, you won't see them represented a lot. You'll see lots of beautiful coloured fish on coral reefs and things, but partly because of where they live, the water very often is quite cloudy and murky, and to get good pictures, you've got to find the fish in the first place, but then to get good pictures, it's another layer of difficulty on top of that.
How significant is it then to have actually managed to do it and to get all of these on record and show it to all of us?
I think it's very significant. I mean, I had to really sort of rack my brains to think of that number of fish, and obviously he's included migratory fish that swim up from the sea, and also exotics and invasives. But I'm not surprised that it took him longer than he thought it would. A year's a long time, but what was it, 7 years? So for sticking at it, he must be sort of basking in a real sense of achievement right now.
You obviously spend some time in murky waters. What's the biggest catch you've ever made here in the UK?
Oh, in the UK, let me see. I haven't fished much in the UK for quite a few years now, but I had a 26.5-pound carp back in the 80s or something, and that's nothing unusual now. But back then, that was something very special. Now I've moved on to. I tend to be sort of a bit too exhausted when I get back from my trips to the Amazon or Congo or wherever. I'm starting to fish for the small wild brown trout in the local river at the moment, but doing that as an antidote to what I do on my TV programmes.
The River Frome, I know it well, I know it well. Give us a sense then of some of these big fish that you're landing overseas. You talked about the Amazon. I mean, you're putting yourself sometimes in harm's way, aren't you, in pursuit of these fish. Just explain why.
Well, I mean, it can seem like it's in harm's way. I mean, certain people occasionally do fall foul of large fish in some places, but the reason for that normally is because they don't know the fish are there and they don't understand the behaviour of them. So what I try and do in my programmes is first of all show that these things exist, and also give an insight into how they behave. For you know, if you wave a pale foot in front of something in muddy water, if it bites your foot, it's not because it thinks you're a person. It thinks that's a small fish probably. So it's generally not the fish's fault. It's your fault if something like that happens. So it's all about doing your homework. You know, both for me, for catching fish and showing them to the camera that way, although I do dive occasionally as well, and for Jack too, it's very much about it's putting yourself in the mind of a fish, which is quite an interesting thing to do, actually. They live in a very different world from us, particularly freshwater fish. It's not so much about vision, it's about smell, it's about vibration. Gravity doesn't play such a part in their lives, so it's you know, by putting yourself in the place of a fish, that's partly why it's such an escape from, you know, the normal humdrum everyday life.
And by describing that all so well, you give us a real sense of really what Jack Perk has achieved with his 53 species of freshwater fish. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us and share your enthusiasm. Really good to talk to you, Jeremy Wade.
Been a pleasure, thanks.